Buzz clean that up because I butchered it in a couple of places.
Okay.
The Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree. The Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree. The Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree. The Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree is brought to you by Soccer 90. Give the gift of soccer this holiday season. Shop at soccer90.com and find the perfect gift for your soccer-loving loved one. FC Dallas, national team, international club gear, it's all available. And if you can't decide what to get, give them the Soccer 90 gift card. That's the default gift. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Let them pick out what they want for Christmas by giving them a gift card. Third Degree listeners get 25% off when you check out and use the promo code Third Degree at soccer90.com. Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fans. Welcome to episode number 141 of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi, it is me again, Peter, and we're down a man. I'm not sure why, but who cares? You still got our hero, everybody's hero, the amazing Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Hello, Peter. How are you? Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Joyous Festivus, whatever your jam is.
All of that stuff, yeah. Whatever your jam is, happy to you. Because there's just too many jams going around these days.
Yeah, there's more every year. It seems like.
Yes, new jams happening all the time. It's the season of jams. How about that? Yeah. Or maybe it's a season for a person of no jam. Maybe some people are into having no jam. So then happy no jam to those people as well. I just want to make sure we're not leaving anybody out. Buzz, we are definitely now at the slowest part of the offseason. We don't have a ton to talk about. I do want to ask you a question. The MLS Cup was last weekend. My kick-around co-host, Andy Swift, was there in attendance for his 26th consecutive MLS Cup. Yep, he's been to all of them. He reported great scenes, and I was thinking afterwards because Pep Guardiola was talking about Tati Castellanos, the forward who led the league in scoring, Major League Soccer in scoring this year, is now getting interest in Europe and is getting marked at about $20 million. He's 24. He has scored 37 goals in 4 seasons for NYCFC. Does that change your perspective of the value of Ricardo Pepi, who's really only been doing it for 1 season?
Not particularly for me. Castellanos is probably more of the sure thing than Pepi is, but not dramatically so. You know, last year in the shortened season, he only had 6 goals. And the season before that, which is 11, which is a good season. Don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with 11. But the season before that, when he was 18, basically, he had 1. So there's an intrinsic value to Pepi due to how young he is and how much his age is different than the other guys. So if you need a guy like right now, like I need a dude to come in and score 20 or come off the bench and give me 10, then you definitely want the New York guy, the Castellanos. Pepi, for most people that are at the price point he is, which I still believe is $15 million, I think most people that are looking at him are thinking about a long-term project. You don't look at Pepi and go, oh, he's going to come in and start for me at Liverpool this year. I mean, that's no, right? So, and probably not, if you want to talk about Liverpool, probably not Castellanos either, but something in between certainly for both of those guys. So one of them is younger with theoretically more upside, and one of them is more proven, ready to go right now. So that's the 2 price points are different, and that they both feel about right for me. You know, we always talk about higher up the field, and the more towards the middle, and the more of a goal scorer you are, the more you're worth. That's just how that works. So they both feel right. How about you? Do you think it changes Pepi's?
The answer to your question is yes, it does, Buzz. I have never thought that Pepi was $15 million. I think the real price on Pepi is somewhere closer to 10 or maybe 12. And I think when you see that the guy from New York is getting priced somewhere at 20 based on his performance and the fact that he is still by, all accounts, a very young player at 24, I do think that does reduce the value of Pepi. But again, you make a very fair point that if you're trying to get Pepi because you really believe that he is he's got a higher upside, than Castellanos, and I think that's going to end up ultimately being the determining factor of who's right in this debate is what is the ultimate upside of the New York player versus Pepi, because if he doesn't have as great an upside as Pepi, then Pepi at 15 may be the bargain of all time.
Yeah, consider that when you're thinking about these two players, one of them is almost to the prime window of his career. He's 2 seasons off from being, that 25 to 29 peak. So Castellanos is he almost is what he is. Like 23 years old to European teams is not young. Sure. Pepi, who's did all this at 18, as you say, if you're buying him, you're not buying him for the now. You're buying him to flip him in 4 years, and double and triple the price. I do agree with you, by the way, that I don't think Dallas will get 15. I say 15 because that's the pure cash number. But we know that's not going to be the way it's going to work. Dallas is going to do a sell-on. So it's not going to be 15. It's as you say, the final number is going to be 10 to 12 million with a percentage, right? That's the expectation. So you may be right. He may not be worth 15. Now, the agents are already leaking that there's people coming in at 13. So we know that it's at least that in raw numbers. Assuming that is the raw number and not a raw with not a percentage sell on hiding in there somewhere. So there's going to be a lot of wait and see on this. The interesting idea is that if you had to win a game tomorrow, which one of these two guys would you go with? And the answer probably is Castellanos, because at 5 years older and 5 years more experience, there's a value to that. But if you wanted to ask if I'm going to buy a guy for a decade, which one would I want? Well, then you'd say Pepi all the way. So that's intrinsically to me the difference in these two players, and the different kinds of teams, in my opinion, are going to come in for those two guys. The same kind of team won't be interested in both of those two players. There's just a different appeal to each of them. And that means that their value is based on different commodities. And that's where it gets so hard to predict these things in the European market.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so now we're a week on since the last time we talked about this. Any change in Pepi watch 2021-22?
It's funny, since we started talking about how much his agents appear to be blabbing, they seem to have stopped blabbing. Because since our last podcast, I don't recall any more leaks about Pepi and prices and all that stuff. Since the Hunts came out hard with, no, we're planning for 2022 with Pepi. And even today, like all the season ticket sales packages and all the things they marketed were Pepi. Now, you would assume probably that FC Dallas, being the organization that it is, that nobody from the player side of the thing has bothered to speak to anybody from the marketing side and told them, you better not make it all about Pepi. So, but they sure are acting like it's all about Pepi. Because man, there's going to be some people. Because like if you're a casual fan and you're not paying attention, you might not know that Pepi's about to probably be sold. So like if let's say you're all in, oh my God, Pepi, I'm buying like 5 packages. My kids are all hyped, and then come January, he's gone. You might be really pissed. I mean, maybe not. Maybe people are so casual they just don't even care. But I mean, for sure, think about it this way too, Peter. If you sell Pepi or not sell Pepi, that fundamentally changes everything you're doing with this roster and how you build going forward. And if you sell him, you're in a big hurt in terms of trying to replace him. Whichever way you choose to do it, it gets way harder and way more complicated to bounce back next year if you don't keep him.
Well, it does, and that's why I'm, even by Dan and Clark's standards, surprised that they've gone all chips in on including him on all this marketing material, because it's so obvious that that the odds of him staying here and them not getting an offer that they can't stand to walk away from is likely at this point. I just, the idea that they would turn away from 12, 13, $10 million for him when, I mean, look, I believe in Pepi as much as the next guy, but it's not like he's got a tremendous track record. I mean, again, you've made the point, Buzz. Since he signed his new contract in July, he scored 4 goals for FC Dallas, right?
Yeah.
And I know he had a couple of nice performances for the national team, but he also had stretches of time for the national team where he, got a little lost in the mix. And that may not be his fault. But again, at the end of my point being is that I don't think all of us really can definitively say we know what you've got in Ricardo Pepi, because he is just an 18-year-old guy. And the fact that they may risk all of that into him having a crummy follow-up season or getting hurt just continues to seem improbable in my book.
Yeah, it probably depends on how badly they need the money. You would like to say that the Hunt family doesn't need the money, but remember, as you and I always talk about, their intentions are to run FC Dallas at like a zero balance. They like, in order to spend money, they want to bring money in, and that's why it's important that some of these other deals have not come in all the way they're supposed to. And that's why it's a big deal that Dan told the season ticket holders the other day that they have stuff in front of the court of arbitration to try and get the money that they're owed, and if Pepi adds into that too, maybe they're like, we have all these plans, we want to do all these things, but we can't until some of this cash comes in. How much they want or need that money, how desperate they are for that money may go a long way. You're right. There is a risk reward in waiting. And this is the kind of thing that only the Hunts really know, and they don't talk a lot about this kind of thing. Dan Hunt will talk about till he's blue in the face how they run to keep Pepi, and how they're all in on the kid. And they did sign him to a long-term deal. 2026 that's a long MLS deal. And I guess it comes down to if you want Pepi and what you value Pepi at is 100% on you as a foreign club or whatever to scout, and how good you feel your scouts are and your talent evaluation is that you've identified this guy. You're right that since he did the contract, it did tail off a little bit, but he also became a marked man, and then he went to the U.S., and then he broke through there too. That's the thing that's always most impressive about that kid is that every level he's gotten to, he's broken through. He has yet to hit that ceiling. So it's going to be, there's a risk reward across the board here for everybody. There's risk for Pepi to stay and to go, and there's risk for the Hunts to stay and to go. Because you could also, just as you could make the argument that, and it's a real one, that if he got hurt or if he tails off and doesn't score next year, but you could also make the argument, what if he is available the whole season and bangs in 30? This is a gamble. It's like a commodities market, right? In a way, Peter. I mean, if you want to think of it that way.
Here's the mitigating factor that worries me about leaning on Pepi for 2022, which is the rest of the team just isn't very good. You've got a new coach coming in, and there's a lot of inconsistency. You don't know what the rest of the roster fixes coming are going to look like. It's not like we're following up an outstanding season with the promise of another follow-up outstanding season. There's just so many questions about what this team is going to look like in 2022 that the idea that Pepi is just so good at what he does that no matter how bad, mediocre, or good the team is, he's going to have an outstanding season just doesn't seem realistic to me.
Yeah, it's fair. And that comes down to that has to weigh into the equation for me. Like we've talked about how hard it is to rebound from a bad season. And Dallas has only managed to rebound from that season this poorly once. Every other time they've been this bad, it took them a whole season afterwards that they missed the playoffs before they were able to get back into the playoff picture. Only Oscar one time got them back in 1 year. Obviously, if you purely look at the numbers, the defense is the problem. They scored enough goals and they have enough creative pieces and they have enough assists on the table, that all of which Pepi helped facilitate. But you can look back to when Pepi wasn't playing and the early part of the season when they did not score goals at all, and the latter part of the season when Pepi missed a couple of times and Jesus Ferreira had to carry the team a lot. So you do worry that if Pepi is gone, that it's going to make it even more difficult. So that may be a factor in the Hunt's mind as well. Is like, do we want to, if we get rid of the guy, or we're going to eat a pile of dirt next year? At the same time, I agree with you that the time is right to sell him if the number is there. The mitigating factor is just the Hunts. We don't know really. Like when we first went in this conversation, I was like 80-20, he's gone. And now I'm down to 50-50 only because the Hunts are doing what they're doing and saying what they're saying. All the signs point to like this should be the time to capitalize on Pepi. But I don't know. I mean, I mean, it's a mystery, honestly, and we're gonna have to wait till January window really to know because I don't think anyone that actually knows on the club side is talking. I think all the talking is coming from the other side, and they're probably telling you way more than actually is going on just to try to create the heat and create the momentum, and get the hype up around the kid. So we'll see.
All right. Well, Pepi Watch is in full effect.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing, So the other thing that happened today, as a matter of fact, is we got the schedule for 2022. And if you want to hear me be hopeful and sound optimistic, here is your moment. You may want to, save this recording, because if the fact that FC Dallas appears to have gotten smart and moved all of their summertime home game starts to 8 p.m. is any indication of how kick-ass this season's going to be, 2022 is going to be super kick-ass, because that's exactly what happened when the schedule came out today. I'm so happy to see 8 o'clock kickoffs. No more sun on the east side of the stadium in those June, July, and August games. The only 7:30 game is in September. And by then, you've got you've pretty much done with the sun problems.
Yeah, there's a 6 p.m. in May, which is not too bad. There's a 2 p.m.
That's not a problem. Yeah.
In April, that's not a problem at that time of year. Because Dallas is not on national TV very much. There's not very many of these 2 p.m. games. They have 2 on the road, and they have the 1 at home. But the one, as I just said, is in April, so that's not a problem. So honestly, the way the schedule lays out with all these 8 p.m. summer starts is phenomenal. By the time you get to September, that 7:30 is fine, and the 4 p.m. back in October actually might be nice, back in the sunshine in October to end the season. By the way, did you look at the I mean, when you're bad, the whole schedule's bad, but the run out is particularly bad for this team.
No, I haven't really. I was so excited about the 8 p.m., the shift back to 8 p.m. kickoffs. I haven't even spent any time actually looking at how the schedule turned out in or against their favor.
Yeah, well, they finished against Sporting Kansas City, which is always rough, that game.
Yeah, that's
you never
good.
know. Yeah, but the game before that is Colorado. Again, always rough.
Oh, holy crap. Hold on a second. They end the season in a Western Conference blitz. Nashville, Salt Lake, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. At Nashville, at home against Salt Lake, at Minnesota, at home against LAFC, and then a back-to-back on the road against San Jose and Colorado, and then finish the season at home. Oh, my gosh, against Kansas City.
I told you.
That is a brutal run out.
Brutal, because Sporting is good, Colorado's good, San Jose is Dallas's bogey team, LAFC's early season favorite to win it again.
Wow.
Minnesota is good, at home particularly. RSL always makes Dallas tough. Nashville, good team, tough. And before that, Philly, right? Good team.
Yeah.
San Jose, your bogey team again. Before that, Portland. Before that, at Seattle. I mean, I'm telling you, like, the last 10 is nuts. Now, look, listen, if you're a bad team, then the whole thing is nuts. But that last 10 is ridiculous in terms of trying to make the playoffs. I mean, they front-loaded the season with most of the Eastern Conference games, which is interesting. That's a new take. You get all your Copa Texas games are all in the middle of the summer against Austin, against Houston, teams you think you can beat. Vancouver's not very good. You got your chances to make some hay in the middle of the summer when it's really hot and when Dallas swoons, right? And then right as you're coming out of theoretically your swoon, I mean, August is going to be rough with that schedule and that. And then you run into that juggernaut down the stretch. I mean, they did not do Dallas any favors with this back end of the season schedule, to be honest.
No. So help me. I always get which months are historically good or bad for Dallas, but here's the crazy part. May has 6 games in it? No, 5 games.
Yeah.
So May has 5 games in it, but June only has 3 games. There must be an international break window in there. Okay, that's what that is.
Yeah.
They've got 5 games. No, 6 games in July. Holy cow.
6 games in August, too.
Oh, wow. So 12 games in 2 months. The 4th, 9th, 13th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th of July. And 4 of those are home games. And then August, the 2nd, 6th, 13th, 17th, and 21st, and 27th, 3 of those are home games.
Yeah.
Mighty.
it's nice that they gave Dallas Chicago again. That's good. But then the East Coast teams they gave them, Toronto and Miami are right now not very good. But they gave them NYCFC, the champions. They gave them Philly, who was really good. They gave them Orlando. That's Pepi. That's a decent team. They gave them the Revs, the Shield winners. They gave them the Red Bulls, who are usually pretty good. I mean, they did not get a break on the Eastern Conference teams they're getting. And maybe it just seems that way because Dallas stinks. But, they might not feel this way when we see how the season actually goes.
Yeah, and because there's and we did not get Charlotte, so because there are now the correct number of teams, Dallas, everybody in each conference plays their conference opponents twice in a season, and then they get a select number of opposite conference teams. That's what unbalances the schedule for everybody. Is that not there's teams that are going to get Charlotte in the Western Conference that Dallas didn't get, for example, and end up with an easier schedule because they get some of the lesser Eastern Conference teams. Wow, man, you are not kidding, Buzz. That last 10 is an absolute run out. Just to recap, if you're not looking at the last 10 games for Dallas, starts on August the 2nd at Seattle, then 4 days later at Portland, and then a week later, a back-to-back home games against San Jose and Philadelphia, and then a road game to Nashville, and then 6 days later, home against Salt Lake, then Minnesota on the 3rd of September, then LAFC on the 10th, a week later, San Jose, and then a week after that, in Colorado, and you end on the 9th of October against Kansas City.
Yeah, you'd like to think that the San Jose is the team that you can do well against, but we know Dallas, for some reason, has a problem with that team, and then you have to go at some very difficult teams. It's actually the last 11: at Seattle, at Portland, at Nashville, at Minnesota, at Colorado. Those are all difficult. And then your home games aren't any better other than San Jose. Philadelphia is a really good team. Salt Lake is almost always a really good team. You just saw what they did in the playoffs. LAFC is a really good team, and Sporting is a really good team. So it's like you've got games in that stretch against the top 5 teams in the Western Conference, some of them multiple times, and then one really good team from the Eastern Conference. So it's like it's honestly, you couldn't have made it other than taking out San Jose maybe for somebody. But like I mentioned, again, that's a team that they struggle against for some reason. That 11-game run. And if you can even go back, it gets silly at some point going backwards past that. But you better be in playoff position when you hit that last game stretch, because it would be easy to stumble through that sequence of games.
Well, that certainly puts the season in perspective when you see the schedule like that. But I haven't looked at anybody else's schedule, compared it to anybody else. I've not taken the time to do that. But that does add an extra little bit of information and spice to the 2022 season. But again, let's focus on the positive, Buzz. Summertime, 8 p.m. kickoffs at home. I think that is a fantastic move. And whoever made it, I don't know if it was the league, I don't know if it's the team, I don't know if it's the Hunts, I don't care, whoever it was, bravo for that shift. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. In terms of fan enjoyment, and listen, and Dan Hunt in the supporters meetings the other day said that they're really trying to turn their eye and focus on game day experience. And this is the first clear sign that is a legitimate thing for him to have said, because that shift makes a world of difference in the summertime heat, particularly on the east side.
Yes.
In the sun. Massive, massive difference.
Yeah, let me just repeat, because for somebody listening to this that doesn't understand why 8 p.m. kickoffs are so critical, the reason being is the reason why everybody cries about not having a roof is that when the games start at 7:30, 7 or earlier in the summer, and this runs from about May all the way up until August, late August, early September, or into September.
Yeah,
the sun's setting behind the stadium on the west side goes behind the west side and removes itself from the east side stands almost literally right at 8 o'clock. So if you kick off the game at 8 o'clock, almost the entire east side of the stadium is no longer bathed in beating hot-ass Dallas, Texas
100-degree
summertime blazing sun scaldingness. And they did this once before. There was one season where they played 8 o'clock kickoffs, and everybody loved it because the beating Sun on the east side wasn't a problem. And then mysteriously they shifted back to 7 o'clock, and then they kind of moved back to 7:30. And the reasons for doing that are a little subjective, and I've heard a lot of different conspiracy theories as to why. One in particular always rings very true because it sounds like the most Hunt thing ever to make a business decision on. But I don't know it to be true, so I won't repeat it here on the podcast. Anyway, that's why if you don't understand playing the games at 8 o'clock, it essentially removes the need for a roof simply for sunlight reasons or shade reasons, right? Like if you just kick the games off at 8, you don't need a roof. Now, you may want a roof for a whole host of other reasons, rain, noise, atmosphere, etc. But 8 p.m. kickoffs eliminate the need for shade and sun for sun purposes. Yeah,
particularly when we didn't get any of those national team 2 p.m. games during the summer, because those are the ones that are the absolute. I mean, if you've ever sat at that point, it doesn't matter which side, but in particular the east side at that 2 o'clock in like August, it's literally, and it's not any better on the field than it is in the stands. It's literally like 125 degrees on the field. And that's what always makes me laugh when you hear the teams like Minnesota complaining about the snow in the winter. And it's like 20 degrees or minus 20 or whatever it is. I'm like, dude, it's nearly 125 degrees on the field, and you guys want to come here in August, So it's a life. I mean, honestly, not to joke, but it could be a lifesaver to not have those games be in the blistering heat of the day when this is the time of year when people have the heat strokes and crap. So I applaud this across the board, putting these games late like this. It's fantastic.
Okay, so everybody check out the schedule, wallow in it for a bit, and let us know what you think. Now, the other thing to discuss is we get into now we have a coach, now we got a schedule, we're still trying to figure. And I do think this next conversation becomes even more problematic because of the Pepi situation. And I don't even know if it's a function. I mean, does the idea of what your needs are? Well, the obvious answer is yes. If Pepi is here or not, does it change based on Pepi's result?
Yeah.
Because if you say so right now, if Pepi stays, what's the number one position they need to fix?
For me, it's wing. They need help at wing. That's number one for me.
Okay.
I don't know if you would agree with that or not.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. It is wing because I'm not an O'Brien fan, and I don't want Paxton playing out on the wing, and I'm still a little uncertain about Schoen. I know he's got some speed and some skill. I'm worried that the guy isn't eating enough barbecue. He's just a little thin. I would say wing's probably the number one concern of mine, if not the six holding.
So at the wing, even if you were all in on Schoen, he's going to miss a bunch of games with his country. As they finish up qualifying and then they get into their Nations League and all that stuff. So his availability is going to be spotty anyway. And behind O'Brien theoretically is Dante Seeley, but he's not here on loan. And who knows if he's ever coming back? Probably not. And they have Khalil El Mankour on the other side, who is the homegrown they stole from Philly, basically. We're not 100% convinced that guy is an answer yet. He's gotten some minutes, but he's played mostly for North Texas so far. So, and we want to move Paxton in. So right now you're looking at an O'Brien Schoen, which for many games might be fine, but the confidence level on all that is kind of low. And there really isn't like a guaranteed solve inside the club. So for me, number one, wing is where you go outside the club. And it's probably why there was those multiple reports of them talking to the guy from Gremio, who they probably can't afford because the Hunts don't spend money. But it points to the idea that they would agree with this. And so I would like to see a wing brought in that can go both sides. We've seen O'Brien flip-flop sides. We've seen Paxton flip-flop sides. We don't want him to play wing. Schoen has flip-flop sides. So that's pretty typical that you would get a guy. No one's a pure right or left as much anymore. Even if he's all 1 foot, you can play him as a false wing on the other side and that kind of thing. So, to bring in a guy that's at least of the level of those other two dudes and have a little rotation and have coverage for injuries or call-ups, I think is one of the biggest needs. And really, if you can get a dynamite player at that position and create real competition and give yourself really exciting options, I think that's number one spot.
But getting back to the original point, if in fact he is, gone, that
Pepi
does change because now suddenly your number 9 position is the biggest point of need because Hara's not cutting it, right?
Yeah, 100%. Now, Hara's value at this point for me is only as a bench piece. The 7 goals he had mostly off the bench is an acceptable production for a bench player. The thing that makes it stupid is the price, what you're paying for him. But that's a sunk cost. You have to ignore it. But he's not the answer if Pepi is sold. If Pepi is sold, the cheap answer is to put Jesus up front as a false 9, like he plays for the U.S. national team, which he has done before for this club back in 2019. So that's a perfectly viable option. Whether you want to do that or not comes down to the coach's style. Does the new coach really want Jesus to stay in that off striker 10 role, or does he want him to play up front as this false kind of 9? We have no idea at this point, because replacing Pepi straight up is going to be very, very expensive. There's nobody in the academy that's ready to replace him. There are a couple of interesting prospects, but they're not ready to be Pepi. So you're going to have to spend some serious money if you want to get a guy that you feel as confident as you do about Pepi. Man, that's tough. Jesus is a much more confident move in the sense that you know exactly who he is and you know he can be productive. So for me, that would be the solution. But I'm not Andres Zanata or Nico Estevez. So, what they want to do is a real mystery. I mean, and we'll have to see what happens in camp. So that's a position, if they do sell Pepi, that's a position that there are 2 potential legitimate solutions, and whether you move Jesus or not affects the whole rest of the team. Part of the reason I like moving Jesus is that I can then put Paxton in to a similar free 8 role. It's different than Jesus because Paxton actually plays good defense and sits in where he's supposed to. So that's one reason why it's such a big impact, whether you sell Pepi or not.
All right, so wing and potentially 9 are your 1A and 1B positions of concern. I guess when it comes to holding mid, center backs, and outside fullback spots, are those all interchangeable in terms of their importance?
Probably so. Which one you think is more important will depend on how confident you are in the starters. That whole group gets lumped together, and you can include the 6 in this too, because the defense was so bad, because they let in such an astronomically high number of goals. So sometimes when we might say, oh, this position needs to be better, it might be because they tried a young 17-year-old kid in that spot for 10 games, or it might be because somebody was hurt a bunch. Like if you talk about center back, for example, both coaches were reluctant to go with Tafari in the beginning, but Hedges got hurt, Brisson got hurt, Martinez got hurt. Those side guys are all getting a little bit older. So how much you think center back is a position of need depends on how confident you are in any of those 4 options to be the answer. Now, I think Tafari should be the guy, which means that Brisson is gone. So either Hedges or Martinez has to come through. So in my opinion, you want to carry 5 center backs on a roster, not 4. You want 5. Now, the 5th one can be like a guy you just drafted, or it can be the dude from North Texas or whatever. So no matter what, you need 1 center back. So do you go out and try and get a frontline DP-ish level center back when you're already paying Hedges and Martinez both right at or near the DP level? Or do you go for a sort of veteran kind of because among Tafari, there's a solution as a starter. You hope Hedges and Martinez, one of those guys, is a solution as a starter. So I think you're just looking for a mid-career veteran, 4th center back in that situation. Unless, of course, you don't think Hedges has it anymore or don't think Martinez is any good. But that's a lot of money in that spot.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider there, and ultimately, as you know, Buzz, some of this is going to come. The ability for them to fill any of these positions is going to come down to the topic that we started with, which is the Pepi deal. Because because here's where this gets really weird. If they sell Pepi and they have to replace him, as to your point, that's expensive unless they've decided the solution is Jesus, and then they can take Pepi money and help fill out some of these other spots.
Yeah.
So. It is that is going to end up being the real thing that we end up having. Everybody knows this. I'm just preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
It's just the thing, man. It is.
No, it's
totally,
important.
All there is about it. All right. Well,
it's important to know that. That's one reason why I think when you get to the window, if they are selling him, they'll do it as soon as possible, because you want to get that over with and get into who you're replacing people with. You need the money. You need to know what you're doing. You know what the plan is. Like if you're the coach and if you're Andre, you don't want to be sitting there into late January into early February. I mean, January camp opens in January 16th, right? So it's like you have very little time left to get this thing lined up and gone so you can get to work. You know, before your camp opens January 16th, that's no time at all to me. So I was like,
no, and that's the crazy part is that the season is just so close to being right around the corner. I mean, they kick off at the end of February. It's ridiculous how fast this is going to happen. All right. Well, we'll just keep an eye on all those things, Buzz, as you always do.
Well, let's talk about the other couple of positions.
Oh,
okay. For me, the 6 is the other one I think is a position that could use upgrading. And it's nothing. I'm not hardcore against Facundo Quignon. For me, he's a perfectly adequate middle of the table MLS 6. He's fine. But fine for me doesn't cut it in the position that is most important towards getting to the top of the table. I don't think it's a coincidence that when you had Grezzo, you won Shields and Open Cups, and you got rid of him and brought in Thiago Santos, who was decent enough to get you into the playoffs, and then he got sold, and then you had Quignon, who took some time to adjust or was hurt, and you missed the playoffs. I mean, that's simplistic, but I think it's true. And he's also in the prime of his career. He's in the flat-toed part of his career, so he's not going to improve. Now, maybe there's a little of the familiarity playing in. He did get hurt. Maybe he was playing a little bit hurt. So maybe, cross your fingers, he can get a little bit better, but I don't think he's not going to get crazy better. And then Edwin, who I think in a couple of years will be really good. Now, so if you want to say as an organization, okay, we're all in on the kids, Edwin's the guy, we're starting Edwin, we're starting Cervania, we're starting Paxton, we're starting Jesus, and we're going to wait 3 or 4 years for those guys to hit their prime, and then we're going to go for cups, multiple cups. But if you want to put Edwin in and let him play into it for 3 years, I'm okay with that. But you have to be honest about it that that's what's actually happening. I don't know that with the money they've invested in Quignon that like you could justify going out and trying to get a Grezzo level 6 when you've already got 800 grand plus in another guy. So I think you're stuck with those two options, both of whom next year will probably just be middle of the table okay. I think you can make the playoffs with those guys, but you're not going to win a cup with those guys. I don't think. Not yet. Not with Edwin yet.
Okay.
And then outside back, I wrote down as a position of need, less about the starters than about the backups. Yeah, because Ryan's 31, so that's fine for this year, but it's starting to get towards the end. And Johnny, we have no idea how healthy he is. You know, he's out of contract. They didn't pick up his option. They're kind of waiting to see. Even if you think Johnny's fine as your backup, long term that may not be good enough. You may have to look at some things. That spot should have been Jonathan Gomez's spot. He should have been signed as a homegrown like a year and a half ago, but he's gone. You know, he'd be ready to transition in and be the starter, starting, you know, be worked in over the course of this season. But that's water under the bridge. Now, right back, you know, Che really had some struggles in the middle part of the season. And when they talk about playing too many youngsters too soon, I think that's who they're talking about, the club, not me. Emma Tuamasi proved that he's the guy there. But then behind him, Justin Che is going to be sold. I don't think there's any question about that, in my opinion. You have Eddie Munjoma, who's not proven anything. So both outside back spots, mostly it's about backups for now. And how do we have a plan for multiple years? Because even if you like Tuamasi, he's in his last year as an option. So will he take a new contract or not? Or does he want to test the market? You know, who knows? Because he's not American. Remember, he's a green card, so he's not from here.
Oh, that's right.
He was a college player here, but you know, and he's obviously happy to develop his career here so far. But he might think, I want to go play wherever in the world. You know, he's not an American citizen. So,
all right. So when you talk about all these positions of need and options, and you know they could do this, how much does the news that they made a trade with Nashville for like $250,000 GAM dollars for an international spot, does that give you any indication on what's going down?
Yes, big indication, because they only had 5 internationals right now. So
who are they?
FC Dallas had 5 international spots.
Right. I mean, who are the 5? Is what?
Oh, the 5. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, they are. Let me look real quick. They are Franco Jara, Jose Martinez, Hadir Obrian, Shabok Shun, and Facundo Quignon. Now, So each team has 8. So they had 3 open, which is a decent amount. 3 you can work with. They traded for another one. So now they have 4 open international spots. For you to feel like you needed a 4th one, I think is telling. And they've also talked a lot about the Hunts have and Zanata has, and the coach did too, about the U22 initiative, which was what Shun was. And they really like that. That's the older, a couple of years ago, FCD method of going to get a Barrios or a Castillo, these younger guys with a little more upside that work better than these really complete crapshoots kind of stuff. So I think that those 4 spots are pretty important because they also said they have 4 or 5 senior spots open. Now, I have them down as 7, but Nikosi's old enough that he's going to take one of those spots. So depending on who you promote or don't promote, whatever, it's something between 6 and 4 for sure, plus these 4 international spots. So it's pretty clear to me that by going to get that 4th one, you're indicating that we're going to bring in a whole handful of players from foreign countries to fill these spots. 4 at least, obviously, since you needed to trade for that spot. And it may be that Dan Hunt got ahead of himself and only said it's 4 or 5 because he already knows he's got 1 or 2 of them filled by something that we don't know about. You know, he may just be not telling us the other half of why he says it's that few. Now, the thing about foreign spots is I'd like to see some goalkeepers brought in, right? Jimmy Mauer's great, but Jimmy Mauer's a little bit older. I think that they signed Richard Sanchez last year to North Texas to see if he could be like a 2nd or 3rd guy, so that's a possibility. That still leaves you 1 open spot. Even if you liked the Antonio Correa out of the academy, he's too young to be on the first team roster at this point. So, but you don't spend I don't think you should spend a foreign slot at a keeper or an outside back. So you're looking at potentially 4 foreign players coming in to be, I don't know, wing, 9, holding mid, center back, maybe an 8 if you don't believe in Cervania, which would be crazy to me. I don't know why you bail on Acosta when you just for Cervania if you didn't then go get another guy to replace them. That seems weird, but
yeah, it makes me wonder. And I asked you this question back a few weeks ago, I think, which is I wonder if they feel a need to have a veteran presence that they can count on as a starter in midfield that isn't Quignon.
yeah,
And that they're looking for a Brian Acosta replacement, meaning an international veteran DP type player.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing we haven't talked about is the fact is they clearly have DP spots open too.
they have 1 for sure. And again, Hunt told the supporters meeting the other day that they're working on something internally to open up the other one. Now, what that meant, who knows? It could be a Tam Gam buy down to open it up. It could be a buyout of one of the DPs they have now. You could do one buyout, so that would be Hara or Quignon. Maybe it's you go to Matt Hedges and say, hey, we'll give you, XYZ promises for the rest of your life if you can redo your deal and bring your number down. I mean, I don't know. There's a bunch of ways you could open up that second DP spot. Well, they went last year with only 2 DP spots a long time. So for them to be trying to open a second one makes me feel like they must be wanting to use both the second and third DP spot. That otherwise, why would you bother to open the second one if you don't need it?
Yeah, see, and this is where I think this news this week of the $250,000, whatever Gam or Tam it was, that they gave Nashville for that international spot. Because, again, I haven't researched this, but my off the top of my head sense is $250,000 Gam dollars for an international spot is top of the market pricing. I think I'm fairly correct in saying that, which is not a very Hunt thing to do. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, they gave 225 one back in April. So yeah, it's kind of near the top.
Well, who has paid more than $250,000 for an international slot in Major League Soccer before?
Man, I'd have to go look up. Maybe somebody did if they were really it depends on how desperate you were. That was the 1 day window, and they maybe I'm like, look, we really need this right now today.
Right.
And they were like, they had to overpay for it.
Yes,
yeah.
But this is the reason why I'm bringing it up, which is the fact that they would spend, even if it's not the most ever, it is at the top of the market almost certainly. And
yes.
The fact that they were willing to spend $250,000 Gam or Tam or whatever it is for a slot and not necessarily tells me that they've got some sort of bigger plan that they're about to put into play. Because they wouldn't do it otherwise, I don't think.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, and that's what makes me wonder if this is all tied to this DP thing that he was hinting about or referencing at the meeting, was that the international slot and this DP thing are all part of some sort of singular plan.
Yeah, you have to consider the coach. We know he's a 4-3-3 guy, mostly, and that lines up specifically with the Berhalter 4-3-3, which is a single pivot 6. So then you look at three things in the midfield. Think about the national team with a single pivot with Tyler Adams in there. Does FC Dallas have a Tyler Adams right now? I don't think so. I don't think Quignon. I think Edmund could be in a couple of years, but he's not yet. So there you wonder. And then you say, okay, as much as you or I might like Cervania and Paxton in terms of their potential down the line, if you're trying to win a game right now, you might say, look, Weston McKennie, Musa, those levels of players are missing, right now. Could Paxton be that guy? Could Cervania be that guy? I think they could be, but if you're a new coach who's been told make the playoffs and you don't know Paxton and Cervania yet, you don't know if Jesus is having to move up front, you're like, I may need guys in there that are really like true international level, hardcore 8s, especially if I'm going to play 4-3-3, which is a double 8 look. I need 2 of them. And behind Paxton and Cervania, and we always talk about this idea that you want 2 starters competing for every position. So behind Paxton and Cervania, what do you have? Thomas Roberts is gone. You don't know anything about him. Nicky Hernandez had struggled to maintain a starting spot with North Texas even last year. What else do you have? Nothing. So it's like, I would totally buy the idea that they're going to go out and replace Acosta with a DP8 and maybe even 2 guys at that level in that central midfield. The central midfield is so important in a 4-3-3. And in the end, it's going to come down to, are we doubling down on the kids, and are we going to be patient and wait for those guys, Cervania and Paxton and Edwin, to play in over the next 2 or 3 years? Or do we want to get somebody else in the meantime? And we're going to find, there's a lot of we're waiting to see here when we talk about this roster, because we really are. We won't know until we get into January and we see the moves actually begin to happen. Although there's a rumor that there might be a move announced this week. I would have actually thought it might have happened already based on the rumor, but maybe early next week possibly, because then you're going to get into the Christmas holiday and then nothing's going to happen until January. Right. So, yeah.
Well, at least it gives us something to chew on and think about and discuss on the podcast, right?
Yeah, it does. This is my favorite part of the year, this part.
Listen to how eager and chipper you are, Buzz.
I know.
All right. Well, hey, I saw a picture of you posted that you've been posting on social media of you at the Stars game, and it was a selfie of you wearing a hockey sweater. Is that a Boba Fett reference?
It's a Mandalorian.
Or Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Okay.
The back says number 19. It says Mando on the top, and the front is it's a fake team called the Hunters with that silhouette from the Mandalorian. It's a company called I think it's called Geeky Jerseys. They make crazy, weird fake hockey team and a fake baseball team jerseys. I have another one that's got Deadpool on the front with like wearing a sombrero, and it says Wilson 80, which is the real person, quote unquote, that is Deadpool. His name is Wade Wilson. So it says Wilson on the back, and it says time to make chimichangas on the front. I mean, they're fun. They make things like, they're totally geeky. They make lots of movie references, lots of like slasher movies or, your Star Treks and your Star Warses, and they're totally fun. You can Google them. They're not too cheap, but and if you're into like the geeky world and like hockey, they're a whole lot of fun.
Hey, Buzz, how's that Dallas Stars game day experience?
It's pretty good, actually. Well, parking is a nightmare nowadays. That was rough.
Yeah, but, when you begin to hear Mark Cuban talking about building his own place, you then have to experience the parking changes down at the AAC. You begin to understand why he's thinking about moving.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be in Arlington.
No, it's going to be right across the other side of I-35.
Oh, is it? Oh,
he's bought all that property right there where their practice facility is, and he just opened that new concert venue right next door to it. And so he's talking about, the word is that he's thinking about building his own joint over in the design district.
Yeah, parking was rough. They could have used a little more people at the doors because there was a little bit of a line wait to get in, with the scanning and this whatever. So, I feel like you want to get everybody in the building as fast as possible so they can buy stuff, but, they didn't seem to not mind. Lots of, good light show, good entertainment on the board. It's Stars have been around a long time. They know what they're doing. They got a pretty good game day experience. Honestly, it's been over a decade since I've been, and it's mostly the same, but it's got some nice upgrades since I was last there. So.
Yeah, I have two hockey sweaters. One is the Dallas Stars, and the other is from a minor league team that was literally a team, the Macon Whoopee.
Yeah, I remember the Macon Whoopies.
Macon Whoopee, and it's got a whooping crane. Whooping crane on the front, and they were called the Whoopee.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I have an El Paso Buzzards, which was a real team.
Sweet.
Yeah, and then I got, of course, Boston University, where I went to grad school, and then multiple Stars jerseys and a couple other. There's a guy in the NHL whose last name is Carrick, and I got one of his jerseys from Toronto. So.
Hey, you want to start a rumor?
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Let's start a rumor. So we'll start it right here on the Third Degree podcast. So part of Mark Cuban's development plans is a soccer stadium. How about that?
An outdoor soccer stadium?
Outdoor soccer stadium right there next to his basketball arena with parking and a train stop right along I-35 right near downtown Dallas.
Dream scenario.
A location for a soccer stadium.
Yeah.
With downtown looming over.
Yeah, perfect. He's absolutely perfect.
He's looking to develop, turn it into an entertainment district.
Yep, I'm in.
We've officially started the rumor.
Yep. I used to wonder if there was enough room right next to West End Market, if there was enough room to squeeze one in there on the inside the loop, but I don't think there is.
We could start a hashtag. Let's see. What would that hashtag be? Dallas Soccer in DD for Design District.
There you go. Perfect.
Maybe, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, I'll go down there and scout. I'll go look for that location. I'll go scout.
Okay. It's on the you know where the Mavericks practice facility is.
I do.
He apparently has acquired all of that land behind it back quite a ways into the Design District, and so there's lots of talk about him doing his own thing over there.
Wow, he's not real dumb, that guy.
No. I totally made up the whole thing about the soccer stadium. Let me be clear about that. But it seems like a really good thing to make up in advance, because I'm going to get a ton of credit if that turned out to in any way, shape, or form to come to fruition. Man, I'd look like a farting genius, wouldn't I?
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Buzz, that we need to talk about?
Oh, man, we did a lot, but I thought we weren't going to have very much, but that was all good talk. I'll tell you a funny story that will tell you something I think it's funny, is that I went out and watched the academy teams play this weekend against Rio Grande Valley, who's terrible, but it was halfway through the U19 game that I realized that MLS Cup was going on. So it was like, that's the story of my life, that I was out watching the U19 game instead of MLS Cup. Yeah.
That totally captures you at your greatest essence right there. You missed MLS Cup so you could go to a U19 game.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Bless your heart. I'm sure it was, but that MLS Cup game was actually very good and very entertaining.
I know.
Although I will say the numbers of viewers came back and everybody's like, hey, it's 1.4 million. And I think that's not that great a number for your biggest game of the season, when you're trying to do a new deal. So there you go.
All right. I'm going to ask you a little kit nerd question here.
Oh, okay.
If you could have any one single thing in the new kit, like keep in mind we're talking about an FC Dallas kit.
Okay.
So in that context, you got to think of Adidas. You got to think about what FC Dallas does. What's the one significant or important thing that you would like them to do with this new kit that's coming?
If I could have. Are you talking about overall design or just a singular element?
Whatever you want, whatever your buzzword is. It could be the overall design. It could be a singular element. It could be like, this is the most important thing for me that I hope they do.
Well, it would be to do our dream kit. It would be to go with the blue and red hoops.
Yeah.
That's what I want, with white numbers on the back and white shorts.
Yeah, for me, that was what I was going to say, was white shorts. That's the thing that I really hope they take away from like some of the kits they use. The Academy wears the white shorts with the red jersey every time when they're at home.
I
they
see.
go that
Okay.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I see what you mean. You don't mean like a design overall.
no, it can be designed. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
the,
right.
the dream red and blue hoops with the white numbers. That's a beautiful one. That would be awesome.
Option
Yeah.
number 2 would be berets. I was hoping
Berets.
maybe they'd introduce berets into
Yeah.
the game. Yeah.
Berets. I do miss the jersey, the uniform number on the front of the jersey. I miss that. That's a national team thing because they don't have
Yeah,
sponsors.
they don't
But I
really
always
do.
like it on pro teams. You know?
Yeah, that would be interesting. I haven't really put too much thought into whatever this new home jersey is going to look like, and I suspect we won't. I've heard literally. I'd known so little about it, and I don't really know. My contacts have kind of dried up, so I don't.
Yeah.
Really, I haven't. I don't know. They could totally surprise me whenever they decide to throw it out there the week before the season starts, or whenever the very late date will be.
The only thing I got was throwback-ish, which I took to mean, because the person I was talking to about it knows that I'm a big, huge believer in the consistency of sticking with the hoops. You know, like if you go back in time, it didn't have to be hoops, but it is hoops. So I took them to say it's throwback-ish to mean that like they kept that sort of vibe, something like what's on the current jersey now. So whether it's like a little pin hoop or like some hints of a hoop or a fabric thing, that there'll be something in it kind of hoopish is all I'm kind of, but maybe not like a dominant, like real true hoop like we would really want, you know. So we'll see. It's, you know, you're right. There's not much chatter this year, so we're kind of, other than what Dan knows. Well, as Dan always, Dan knows what the template's going to be, so we'll be able to, and it'll be red and blue, I'm sure.
Well, we'll promise to keep everybody posted if we do learn anything.
Yep.
For sure. Okay. Should I read the promo now again?
Yeah,
Is it
I
time
got
for
nothing
me
else.
to do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Third Degree is brought to you by Soccer90.com. Don't forget to give the gift of soccer this holiday season. You could shop at Soccer90.com and find the perfect gift for your soccer-loving loved one. They got national team gear. Of course, they got MLS and FC Dallas stuff, international club gear. But if you can't decide, this is actually a really kick-ass and easy idea. You can give them a Soccer90 gift card and let your person pick out what they want for Christmas because you just gave them a whole bunch of Soccer90 money. How about that? And because you are a Third Degree listener, you get 25% off even gift cards when you check out at the promo. Use Third Degree at Soccer90.com. All right, no Dan. Have we lost Dan for the rest of the year, or what's the story on Dan?
He's on assignment. He's undercover, working on a
On
super secret,
assignment.
top secret, super
Yes.
duper. Yeah.
Is he fixing the Chinese software hack that I keep hearing about that's been going around for the last few days? Is that what he's working on?
No, he's a deep undercover trying to suss out some World Cup in Dallas info.
Oh, okay. Wow. Peter, shut up. Don't
Yeah,
give it away.
Don't blow it.
All right. Well, thank you, Buzz. It's always fun talking to you, my friend.
Yeah, man, anytime. I love doing this.
Yep. All right, FC Dallas Curious fan, we appreciate you, and we will talk to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Bye, Dan.
Bye, Dan.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.